After a quiet night at the office, she was pregnant by the billionaire CEO. Then he announced his engagement. The fluorescent lights in the break room buzzed, that low, persistent hum that only got noticeable after everyone else went home. Lena stood at the counter watching coffee drip into the pot one slow drop at a time. She'd been there since 7 that morning, and now it was past 9. Her lower back ached, the kind of ache that came from sitting too long in a chair that was never quite adjusted right. Outside, rain streaked down the windows of the South Lake Union office building, turning the city lights into blurred streaks of yellow and red. Seattle in October, always grey, always damp, always making you feel like you were living inside a watercolor painting that never quite dried. She poured the coffee into a chipped mug, the one with the faded company logo that nobody else wanted, and added too much cream. It turned the color of old cardboard. She took a sip anyway, bitter. She'd let it sit on the burner too long. The office was almost empty. Just the hum of computers left running, the occasional ping of an elevator somewhere down the hall, and the rain. Always the rain. Lena had stayed late to organize the quarterly reports that somehow always ended up in the wrong folders. Physical folders. The kind that lived in filing cabinets that should have been retired 10 years ago, but somehow still existed because nobody wanted to deal with digitizing 30 years of paperwork. She was good at that, dealing with things nobody else wanted to deal with, fixing mistakes quietly, leaving sticky notes with apologies she didn't need to make. Sorry, move this to the correct file, LP, always with her initials, like she was signing off on something official instead of just doing her job. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a text from her roommate asking if she was coming home tonight or if she'd finally been absorbed into the building itself. Lena smiled, didn't answer. She'd respond later when she was on the bus, staring out at more rain. She heard footsteps before she saw him. Ethan Cole didn't walk like other people. There was a deliberateness to it, not loud, not performative, just intentional. Like every step had been considered and approved. Lena had noticed it months ago, back when she'd first started, and spent most of her time trying not to be noticed herself. He was the kind of person who commanded a room without saying a word, which was probably why he'd built a tech company, from nothing into something worth more than most people could imagine. He appeared in the doorway, still in his suit, but with the jacket gone, and the sleeves of his white shirt rolled up to his elbows. His tie was loosened. Dark hair that was starting to grey at the temples, though he was only 39. Lena knew that because she'd organized his birthday lunch last month, ordered sandwiches from that place on Westlake that everyone pretended to like, but nobody actually did. "Didn't know anyone else was still here," he said. His voice was lower than she remembered, or maybe it was just the quiet of the empty office making everything sound different. "Just finishing up some filing," Lena said, wrapping both hands around the mug even though the coffee was still too hot. "I'll be out of your way in a minute." "You're not in my way." He moved to the coffee pot, grabbed a mug from the cabinet. His hands were steady. Everything about him was steady. Lena envied that, the way he seemed so sure of where he was supposed to be, what he was supposed to do. She'd spent most of her 27 years feeling like she was one wrong move away from everything falling apart. "Long day?" she asked, because the silence felt too heavy and she didn't know what else to say. "Yeah." He poured the coffee, didn't add anything to it, took a sip and didn't flinch even though she knew it had to taste like burnt rubber by now. Numbers aren't adding up on the Bellevue project. Been staring at spreadsheets for 3 hours. "That sounds awful." "It is." He leaned against the counter, and for the first time since she'd started working there, he actually looked at her. Really looked. Not the polite glance he gave everyone in the hallways, not the distracted nod during meetings. This was different. "What about you?" "What keeps you here past 9 on a Thursday night?" Lena shrugged. Someone misfiled half the third quarter reports. Took a while to sort through everything. "You didn't have to do that tonight." "I know." She looked down at her coffee. "But if I didn't, it'd just be there tomorrow and then the day after. And eventually it'd be this huge thing instead of just a thing." He smiled. Small. Barely there, but real. "That's probably the most honest thing anyone's said to me all week. Most people don't tell you the truth. Most people tell me what they think I want to hear." The rain picked up outside, drumming harder against the windows. Somewhere in the building a door slammed. The sound echoed through the empty halls. Lena didn't know what made her say it. Maybe it was the exhaustion or the late hour, or the way he was looking at her like she was a person instead of just another employee. That must get lonely. Ethan stared at her for a long moment. His jaw tightened. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It does." The air between them shifted, not dramatically, no sudden rush of anything. Just a slow realization that they were alone in a way that felt more deliberate than circumstance. The fluorescent lights buzzed, the rain continued. Neither of them moved. "I should probably," Lena started. "Stay," Ethan said. Then, softer, "If you want. I mean, you don't have to, but the coffee's terrible and the company's not much better, so—" She laughed. Actually laughed. "That's quite the sales pitch. I'm better with spreadsheets than words. I'm not sure that's true." They stood there, coffee growing cold in their hands, and talked. About nothing important at first. The rain, the city, the way Seattle seemed to exist in a permanent state of grey. Then deeper things, the jobs they'd thought they'd have when they were younger. The plans that hadn't worked out, the strange loneliness of being surrounded by people, but not really known by any of them. Lena found herself saying things she hadn't said out loud in years. About her dad, who'd passed when she was 23. About the apartment she could barely afford in Greenwood, with the radiator that clanked all night, and the neighbor who played the same Fleetwood Mac album on repeat. About how sometimes she felt like she was sleepwalking through her own life, just going through motions, waiting for something to wake her up. Ethan listened. Didn't interrupt, didn't offer solutions, just listened. And when it was his turn, he told her about the pressure, the endless meetings, the investors who didn't care about the work as long as the numbers looked good, the exhaustion that came from always having to be on. He told her about his engagement, old news by now, something everyone in the office knew about, but nobody really talked about. A woman named Victoria from a family that made sense, in a relationship that looked right on paper. "Do you love her?" Lena asked before she could stop herself. Ethan's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "I don't know anymore," he said. "I'm not sure I know what that means." The honesty of it hit her square in the chest. Outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle. The clock on the wall showed 10:47. They'd been talking for over an hour. Ethan set his mug down on the counter. Lena did the same. The distance between them was maybe 3 feet, close enough to see the grey threading through his hair, the faint line between his eyebrows that suggested he frowned more than he smiled, the way his hands gripped the edge of the counter like he was holding himself in place. "Lena," he said, and her name sounded different in his voice. Heavier, more real. She looked up, met his eyes, dark brown, almost black in the dim light. Tired. Human. "Yeah." He opened his mouth, closed it, ran a hand through his hair, messing it up for the first time since she'd known him. "I shouldn't. I know. This isn't. I know." But neither of them moved away. The space between them felt charged, like the air before a storm. Lena's heart was doing something erratic in her chest, beating too fast and too hard. She could hear her own breathing, could hear his. Ethan took a step forward. Just one. Lena didn't step back. His hand came up, hesitated near her face, then gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear that had fallen loose from her messy bun. His fingers barely brushed her skin, but she felt it everywhere. "Tell me to stop," he said quietly. She should. She knew she should. This was her boss. This was a man who was engaged. This was every bad decision wrapped up in a tailored shirt and expensive cologne that smelled like cedar and something darker. "I can't," she whispered. Their foreheads touched, then their lips. Gentle at first, testing, asking permission, then deeper, desperate. Like they'd both been holding their breath for months and finally remembered how to breathe. Lena's hands found the front of his shirt, gripping the fabric. Ethan's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss tasted like bad coffee and something sweeter. Want maybe, or relief, or the dangerous freedom that came from doing something you knew you shouldn't. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. Ethan's shirt was wrinkled where she'd grabbed it. Lena's hair had come completely loose. "We should," he started. "Not talk about it," Lena finished. "I was gonna say, not do this. But I don't think I can." He kissed her again, slower this time, more deliberate. His hands moved to her face, cradling it like she was something fragile and important. Lena melted into it, into him, into this moment that felt both inevitable and impossible. They left the break room without turning off the lights, made it to his office, corner space, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the glittering rain-soaked city below. The door closed. The blinds were already drawn. What happened next wasn't planned, wasn't careful. It was two people who'd been lonely for too long finding something that felt like connection, even if it was temporary, even if it was wrong. Clothes discarded on expensive carpet, hands searching, learning, breathing that turned ragged. The city lights blurred through rain-streaked glass. When it was over, they lay on the leather couch in his office, wrapped in his suit jacket because the air conditioning was too cold. Neither of them spoke. Words felt too small for whatever this was. Lena's head rested on Ethan's chest. She could hear his heartbeat, still fast, gradually slowing. His fingers traced absent patterns on her shoulder. "I don't do this," and she said finally. "I know." "I'm not." "I know." "Okay." They stayed like that for a while. Maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour. Time felt strange, elastic. Eventually, reality crept back in. The knowledge that they had to leave, had to go back to their separate lives, had to pretend this hadn't happened. Lena sat up first, started looking for her clothes. Her hands were shaking. "Lena." She didn't turn around. "It's okay. We don't have to. Look at me." She did. He was already half-dressed, shirt unbuttoned, hair completely wrecked. He looked more human than she'd ever seen him. "I don't regret this," he said. "You should." "I know." He finished buttoning his shirt. "But I don't." She wanted to say something meaningful, something that would make sense of what had just happened. But her mind was blank, flooded with too many feelings to name, so she just nodded, finished getting dressed, avoided the mirror because she knew she'd look exactly like what she was, someone who'd just made a mistake that felt too good to actually regret. They left separately. Ethan first, after making sure the halls were empty. Lena waited 5 minutes, then took the elevator down to the parking garage. The rain had stopped, but everything was wet, reflecting light in fractured patterns. She walked to the bus stop on Westlake, sat on the cold metal bench, pulled her jacket tighter even though she wasn't really cold. Her phone buzzed. Another text from her roommate. She ignored it. The bus came, she got on, found a seat near the back, pressed her forehead against the window, and watched the city slide by, all neon and shadow. Her lips still tingled, her body still hummed with the memory of his hands. The bus rattled over a pothole. Someone's music was too loud through their headphones. The driver braked hard at a red light on Denny. Lena closed her eyes. She didn't know it yet, but nothing would ever be the same. The bus pulled away from the curb. The city lights blurred past. Her phone buzzed again in her pocket. She didn't look. Monday morning hit like cold water. Lena stood in front of her bathroom mirror, mascara wand in hand, trying to make her face look like it belonged to someone who had her life together. The wand shook. She set it down, picked it up again. Her reflection stared back. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair that wouldn't cooperate no matter how much product she used. The same grey blouse she'd worn 2 weeks ago because laundry was a thing she'd been meaning to do. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she was back in that office, feeling his hands, hearing his voice, tasting coffee and regret. The bus to work was packed. She stood near the back, gripping the pole, swaying with every stop and start. A guy in a Seahawks jersey had his music up too loud. Someone's coffee smelled burnt. The automated voice announced each stop in that flat, robotic tone that made everything sound equally unimportant. Westlake, Denny, Virginia, her stop. She got off. The morning was grey, as usual. That thick Seattle grey that made it impossible to tell if it was going to rain or if it had just finished raining, or if it was raining so lightly you couldn't quite feel it, but your hair would be damp anyway by the time you got where you were going. The office building looked the same as always, glass and steel, modern in that way that would look dated in 10 years. She swiped her badge at the security desk. Tom, the guard who'd worked there longer than anyone could remember, gave her his usual nod. "Morning, Lena." "Morning." The elevator took forever. She watched the numbers climb. 3, 4, 5. Her floor was 12. She counted each one, focusing on the ascending digits instead of the tightness in her chest. When the doors opened, the office hummed with its usual Monday energy. Phones ringing, someone laughing too loud by the coffee station, the smell of someone's breakfast burrito that they definitely weren't supposed to be eating at their desk. Normal. Everything was normal. Except it wasn't. Lena made it to her cubicle, corner space near the copy room that nobody wanted because of the noise, and set her bag down. Her hands were still shaking. She pressed them flat against her desk, willing them to stop. "Hey!" She jumped, turned. It was Priya from accounting, holding 2 coffees from the place across the street that charged too much but tasted better than the office sludge. "You okay?" Priya asked. "You look kinda—" "I'm fine." Lena forced a smile. "Just tired." "Yeah, Monday's right." Priya handed her one of the coffees. "Got you a latte, figured you could use it." "You didn't have to do that." "I know." Priya leaned against the cubicle wall. "So, wild weekend." Lena's heart stopped. "What?" "I'm just asking. You seem weird." "I'm not weird. You're gripping that coffee like it's gonna run away." Lena looked down. Her knuckles were white. She loosened her grip. "I'm fine, really, just didn't sleep great." Priya studied her for a moment, then shrugged. "All right. Well, if you need to vent or whatever, you know where to find me." "Thanks." After Priya left, Lena sat down and turned on her computer, waited for it to boot up. The screen glowed blue, then flickered to her desktop, the generic mountain landscape that came preloaded, because she'd never bothered to change it. She had 17 new emails. Most of them were automated reminders about things that didn't matter. One was from HR about updated parking policies. Another was from some team lead asking if anyone had seen a charging cable. Nothing from Ethan. Not that she expected anything. What would he even say? "Thanks for Friday night, let's never speak of it again." "Sorry I kissed you in the break room and then—" She closed her eyes, took a breath, opened them. Focus. She had work to do. Emails to answer, calls to return, schedules to update. The mundane architecture of her job that usually felt tedious, but right now seemed like a lifeline. Something solid, something that made sense. She made it until 10:30 before she saw him. He walked past her cubicle without stopping, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, navy suit, perfectly pressed, hair combed back. That same controlled expression he always wore, the one that gave away nothing. Their eyes met for maybe half a second. He kept walking. Lena stared at her computer screen. The words blurred. Her chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a band around her ribs and was slowly pulling it tighter. He didn't even acknowledge her, which was fine. Good, even. That's what she wanted. To pretend it never happened. To go back to being invisible. Except she couldn't shake the feeling in her stomach, that hollow, sinking sensation that had nothing to do with the burnt office coffee or the fact that she'd skipped breakfast. She worked through lunch, ate crackers from the emergency box she kept in her desk drawer, the ones that tasted like cardboard but filled the space in her stomach. Around 2, her phone buzzed, a text from her roommate. "You coming home for dinner or living at the office permanently now?" Lena typed back, "Home, promise." Another buzz. "Cool, I'm making pasta, the cheap kind." "Perfect." She set her phone down, went back to work, organized files, updated spreadsheets, responded to an email thread that had somehow spiraled into 23 messages about whether the quarterly meeting should be on Tuesday or Wednesday. Nobody cared. Everyone had an opinion anyway. By 4, her eyes hurt from staring at the screen. By 5, most people had left. By 5:30, she was alone in her corner of the office. She should leave. Catch the early bus. Get home before the dinner rush made everything take twice as long, but her body wouldn't move. She sat there, staring at her computer, not really seeing anything. Lena. She froze. Ethan stood at the entrance to her cubicle, still in his suit, though his tie was loosened now. He looked tired. Actually tired, not just the polished version of tired he showed everyone else. "Hi," she managed. "Can we talk?" "I don't think that's a good idea." "I know, but can we?" She looked around. The office wasn't empty. There were people scattered throughout, heads down, focused on their own work, but her cubicle was tucked away enough that nobody would see them unless they were specifically looking. "Okay," she said quietly. He didn't come in, just stood there, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense. For a long moment neither of them spoke. "I wanted to apologize," he finally said. "For what?" "For Friday, for everything. I shouldn't have—" "Don't." Lena cut him off. "Please don't apologize like it was some mistake you regret. I'm engaged, Lena. I know. What we did was mutual." She looked up at him. "I was there too. I made my own choices." His jaw tightened. "That doesn't make it right." "I'm not asking you to make it right." "Then what are you asking?" She didn't know. That was the problem. She didn't know what she wanted from him, what she expected, what she even felt beyond this strange mix of guilt and longing, and the knowledge that nothing good could come from whatever this was. "Nothing," she said. "I'm not asking for anything." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. The careful composure cracked for just a second. "I can't stop thinking about it." Her heart stuttered. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "Because it makes everything harder. It's already hard." They stared at each other. The air between them felt electric again, charged with the same tension from Friday night. Lena became suddenly aware of how close he was standing, how easy it would be to reach out and touch him. She didn't. "I should go," Ethan said, but he didn't move. "Yeah. This can't happen again. I know. I mean it. So do I." Another beat of silence. Then he turned and walked away. Lena watched him go, watched him disappear around the corner toward the elevators. Heard the ding as the doors opened. Closed. He was gone. She sat there for another 10 minutes, not moving, barely breathing. Then she packed up her stuff, turned off her computer, and left. The bus ride home was a blur. She got off at her stop in Greenwood, walked the 3 blocks to her apartment building, the one with the broken intercom and the hallway that always smelled like someone's cooking. Tonight it was curry, heavy and spiced. Her roommate, Jess, was in the kitchen when she walked in, stirring pasta on the stove, glass of cheap red wine in her free hand. "You look like hell," Jess said without turning around. "Thanks." "I'm serious. Are you okay?" "Just tired." "You're always tired lately." Jess turned, studied her. "What's going on?" "Nothing. Work stuff." You hate work stuff." "I know." Jess poured her a glass of wine without asking, handed it to her. "Drink, then talk." Lena took a sip. It was terrible wine, the kind that came in a box and tasted like someone's idea of what grapes should taste like. But it was warm, and Jess meant well. And for a moment, Lena felt like maybe she could breathe again. "There's this guy," she said before she could stop herself. Jess's eyebrows shot up. "A guy? Since when?" "It's not. It's complicated." "Complicated how?" "He's my boss, and he's engaged." "Oh." Jess set down her wine glass. "Oh, Lena. I know. Please tell me you didn't." "I did." "Fuck." "Yeah." They stood there in the small kitchen, pasta boiling over on the stove, neither of them moving to fix it. Jess finally turned off the burner. The water hissed and settled. "So what are you going to do?" Jess asked. "Nothing. It was a mistake. It's over." Does he know that? Lena thought about Ethan standing at her cubicle, the way he'd looked at her. "I can't stop thinking about it." "I don't know," she whispered. Jess pulled her into a hug. Lena let herself be held just for a moment, feeling the weight of everything she'd been carrying. "You're gonna be okay," Jess said into her hair. Lena wanted to believe her. They ate pasta on the couch, some sitcom playing on the TV that neither of them watched. Lena pushed the noodles around her plate. Her stomach felt wrong. Too tight, too full, too empty. She couldn't tell anymore. Around 9, she went to her room, sat on her bed in the dark. Her phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark. No messages. She picked it up anyway, scrolled through old texts, nothing important. Group chats she'd muted, reminders from her dentist. A promotional email about a sale she didn't care about. She opened a new message, typed Ethan's name. The cursor blinked in the empty text field. What would she even say? She deleted it, put her phone face down on the nightstand, lay back on her bed, stared at the ceiling. The crack above her dresser that looked like a crooked smile, the water stain near the window that her landlord had promised to fix 6 months ago. Her body felt heavy, tired, but her mind wouldn't shut off. She kept replaying Friday night, the way his hands had felt, the way he'd looked at her like she was the only person in the world, the way everything else had fallen away, and for just a little while, she'd felt wanted, needed, real. Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it so fast she almost dropped it. Unknown number. Probably spam. She opened it anyway. "It's Ethan. I got your number from HR. I know I shouldn't be texting you, but I needed to say this. Friday night wasn't a mistake, not for me." Lena stared at the screen, read it 3 times, 4. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She didn't reply. Set the phone down, turned on her side, pulled the blanket up to her chin even though she wasn't cold. The radiator clanked. Outside, a car alarm went off. Her phone lit up the room for a moment, then went dark again. She didn't look. 3 weeks passed like slow torture. Lena deleted Ethan's text without responding, then spent the next hour regretting it, then told herself she'd done the right thing, then lay awake until 3 in the morning wondering if she had. Work became a careful dance. She timed her coffee breaks for when she knew he'd be in meetings, took the stairs instead of the elevator to avoid running into him, kept her head down, her voice quiet, her presence as small as possible. It didn't help that he seemed to be doing the exact same thing. They'd see each other in the hall sometimes. He'd nod. She'd nod back. That was it. Professional, distant. Like Friday night had been a fever dream neither of them wanted to acknowledge, except for the way her heart still jumped every time she heard his voice from someone's office, the way she'd find herself staring at her phone at night, fighting the urge to text him back, the way she knew somehow that he was doing the same thing. By mid-November, Seattle had fully committed to winter. Rain every day, grey skies that never lifted, the kind of cold that wasn't brutal but seeped into your bones anyway, made you tired in ways sleep couldn't fix. Lena stood in the bathroom at work on a Tuesday morning, staring at herself in the mirror. She looked pale, exhausted. Her period was late, really late, like 2 weeks late, which happened sometimes when she was stressed, and God knows she'd been stressed lately. Still, she'd stopped at the Walgreens on Pike Street on her way to work, bought a pregnancy test and a pack of gum to make the purchase feel less significant. The cashier had been a kid, maybe 19, who'd barely looked at her as he scanned the items. Now the test sat in her purse wrapped in the plastic bag, feeling heavier than it should. She couldn't take it here, not at work. Not in the bathroom where Priya from accounting might walk in at any second and ask if she was okay. Tonight, she'd do it tonight. The day dragged. Every minute felt like 5. She answered emails without reading them properly, updated a spreadsheet, and had to redo it twice because she kept putting numbers in the wrong columns. Around noon, Jess texted asking if she wanted to grab lunch, but Lena said she was swamped. Truth was, the thought of eating made her stomach turn. She'd felt off for a few days now, not sick exactly, just wrong. Like her body was trying to tell her something she didn't want to hear. At 4:30 there was a company-wide email. Subject line, important announcement. Lena's hands went cold before she even opened it. It was from Ethan, professional tone, carefully worded. He was announcing his engagement officially. There'd be a small celebration in the office next Friday. Everyone was invited. Light refreshments would be provided. The email went on, but Lena stopped reading. She sat there staring at the screen, feeling something crack open inside her chest. He was really doing it, making it official, moving forward with his perfect planned life while she sat in her cubicle trying not to throw up. Her phone buzzed. A text from Priya. "Wow, did you see the email? I didn't even know he was seeing anyone." Another buzz. Someone else from her floor. "Engagement party next week, should be interesting, LOL." Lena turned her phone face down, closed her email, stood up so fast her chair rolled backward and hit the cubicle wall. She needed air. The break room was empty. She made it to the window, pressed her forehead against the cool glass. 12 floors up, the city spread out below. Cars on Westlake, people crossing streets, life happening everywhere, indifferent to the fact that hers was falling apart. Lena. She didn't turn around, didn't need to. She knew his voice. "Not now," she said. "I had to send it. The board—" "I don't care about the board." People were asking questions. It was time to make it official. She turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. His tie was crooked. There was a coffee stain on his cuff that he hadn't noticed. "Did you mean it?" she asked. "Mean what?" "The text. That Friday night wasn't a mistake." He closed his eyes. "Lena, because if you meant it, if it wasn't a mistake, then what the hell are we doing?" "I don't know." "That's not good enough." "I know." He stepped into the room, closed the door behind him. They were alone, dangerous. "I know it's not, but I don't have a better answer." Lena laughed. It came out sharp, bitter. "So you're gonna marry her?" "Yes." "Do you love her?" "I respect her. I care about her. We make sense together." "That's not what I asked." Ethan's jaw tightened. "No, I don't love her. Not the way—" He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. "Not the way I should." The admission hung in the air between them. "Then why?" Lena's voice cracked. "Why go through with it?" "Because it's what's expected. Because my whole life is built on expectations and responsibilities and doing what makes sense." He moved closer. "Because until 3 weeks ago, I didn't know there was another option. I'm not an option. I'm a person." "I know. That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" He was close enough now that she could see the grey in his stubble, the lines around his eyes. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, that cedar scent that had haunted her since Friday night. "I meant that you make me feel something I haven't felt in years," he said quietly. "Something real. Something that scares the hell out of me because I don't know how to control it." Lena's breath caught. "Ethan, I think about you constantly. I can't focus in meetings, I can't sleep. Every time I see you in this building, I have to fight the urge to—" He stopped himself. "I'm losing my mind." "So what do we do?" "I don't know." They stood there, inches apart, both breathing too fast. The tension was unbearable, electric. Lena could feel the pull between them, that same magnetic force from before. His hand came up, hesitated, then touched her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. "We can't do this," she whispered. "I know." But neither of them moved away. The moment stretched, broke. Lena stepped back, put space between them even though everything in her body screamed to do the opposite. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Okay." Her heart was hammering. This was it. The moment where everything changed or everything ended. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. The door opened. Priya walked in, saw them, froze. "Oh, sorry. I didn't realize—" "It's fine." Lena's voice came out too high. "We were just finishing up." Ethan's expression went carefully blank. The mask slid back into place. "I'll let you get back to work," he said, formal, distant. Like they'd been discussing quarterly reports instead of tearing each other apart. He left. Lena stood there shaking. "Everything okay?" Priya asked carefully. "Yeah, fine. He was just asking about a file." Priya didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. Just grabbed a sparkling water from the fridge and left. Lena waited until she was alone again. Then she sank into one of the break room chairs and put her head in her hands. She couldn't do this. Couldn't keep pretending everything was normal when her entire world was tilting sideways. She left work early, told her supervisor she had a headache, which wasn't a lie, Caught the 5:15 bus. Made it home by 6. Jess was at her boyfriend's place. The apartment was empty. Lena went straight to the bathroom, pulled the pregnancy test from her purse, read the instructions 3 times even though they were simple. Pee on the stick. Wait 3 minutes. 2 lines meant pregnant. 1 line meant not. Simple. She took the test, set it on the counter, and waited. The 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. She stared at the bathroom tile, counting the cracks in the grout. The faucet dripped. Outside, someone's car alarm went off. The building's heater kicked on with its usual clank. When she finally looked at the test, her hands were shaking so bad she almost dropped it. 2 lines, clear, undeniable, pregnant. She stared at it for a full minute, then bought 2 more tests from the 24-hour CVS 3 blocks away. Took them both. Same result. 2 lines, 2 lines. The reality wouldn't change no matter how many times she checked. Lena sat down on the bathroom floor, her back against the tub, the positive test in her hand, the reality of it washing over her in waves. She was pregnant, with Ethan's baby. Ethan, who was engaged to someone else. Ethan, who'd just sent a company-wide email announcing his upcoming marriage. A laugh bubbled up, then tears. Then both at once. She sat there on the cold tile floor and cried until her throat hurt, until her eyes burned, until there was nothing left. When she finally stood up, her legs felt weak. She washed her face, looked at herself in the mirror. Same dark hair, same tired eyes, but different now, fundamentally changed. She had to tell him. No, she couldn't tell him. Not yet. Not until she figured out what she wanted to do. No, she had to tell him. He deserved to know. Her thoughts spun in circles, going nowhere. She went to her room, lay down on the bed, pulled the blanket over herself even though she wasn't cold. Her phone sat on the nightstand. She picked it up, opened her messages, found Ethan's text from weeks ago, the one she'd never answered. She typed, "We need to talk in person." Her finger hovered over send. She pressed it. The message showed as delivered, then read. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Her phone buzzed. When? She replied, "Tomorrow night after work, somewhere not the office." "Okay, where?" She thought for a moment. "The park on Westlake by the water, 7 p.m. "I'll be there." Lena set her phone down, stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow. She'd tell him tomorrow. The radiator clanked, the heater hummed. Outside, the rain started again. She didn't sleep that night. The park on Westlake was nearly empty when Lena arrived. Wednesday evening, almost 7. The sky was that particular shade of grey that Seattle did best. Not quite dark, not quite light, just perpetually in between. The kind of grey that made everything feel like it was underwater. She'd left work at 6:30, walked the 15 minutes instead of taking the bus. Needed the time to think, to rehearse what she was going to say. But now that she was here, standing by the water with the skyline reflected in choppy waves, all her practiced words felt wrong. How do you tell someone they're going to be a father when they're about to marry someone else? She pulled her jacket tighter. November wind cut across the lake, sharp and cold. A jogger passed by, earbuds in, oblivious. Somewhere a dog barked. The water lapped against the shore with a steady, rhythmic sound that should have been calming but wasn't. Her phone said 6:58. She saw him before he saw her. Walking from the direction of the office, still in his work clothes but without the tie now, hands in his coat pockets. He looked tired. Or maybe just nervous. It was hard to tell from a distance. When he spotted her, he stopped for just a second, like he was gathering himself. Then he walked over. "Hey," he said. "Hey." They stood there, awkward, both looking at the water instead of each other. A ferry horn sounded somewhere in the distance. "Thanks for meeting me," Lena said. "Of course." He turned to face her. "You said we needed to talk." "Yeah." "Lena, what's going on?" She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. 3 weeks of carrying this alone, and now that the moment was here, the words were stuck. "I'm scared," she finally said. His expression softened. "Of what?" "Of what I'm about to tell you. Of how everything's about to change." Ethan took a step closer. Whatever it is, I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air between them, heavy, irreversible. Ethan went completely still. His face cycled through emotions too fast for her to track. Shock, disbelief, something that looked like fear, then something else entirely. You're... He couldn't finish the sentence. Pregnant, yes. Are you sure? I took 3 tests, all positive. He ran both hands through his hair, turned away, looked at the water, turned back. How long have you known? Since yesterday. And it's... Yours, yes. Her voice came out sharper than she meant. There hasn't been anyone else. Not for a long time. I didn't mean to imply... He stopped, started again. I'm sorry, this is a lot, I know. They stood in silence. A seagull landed on the railing nearby, eyed them for a moment, then flew off. The ferry horn sounded again, closer now. What do you want to do? Ethan asked quietly. I don't know yet. I'm still processing, but I needed to tell you. You deserve to know. Thank you for telling me. You don't have to thank me. I don't know what else to say. Lena laughed. It came out bitter. Yeah, me neither. Ethan moved closer, close enough that she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the exhaustion written into every feature. Are you okay? No, not really. Are you? No? At least he was honest. The engagement party's next week, Lena said. Everyone in the office is talking about it. I know. Are you really going through with it, after everything? Ethan closed his eyes. Victoria's family. They've already sent invitations. The venue's booked. Her mother's been planning this for months. That's not an answer. I don't have a good answer. He opened his eyes. Looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I thought I had everything figured out. And then you... He stopped. And then this. I didn't do this alone, Lena said quietly. I know. Believe me. I know. He took another step closer. They were maybe a foot apart now. What do you need from me? Tell me what you need and I'll do it. I need you to be honest, about what you want, about what you feel. I want... He stopped, seemed to struggle with something. I want things I have no right to want. Like what? Like you. The words came out rough, raw. I want you, Lena. I think about you constantly. I can't sleep, I can't focus. Every decision I make feels wrong because the only thing that feels right is something I can't have. Lena's heart was hammering. You could have it, if you wanted. It's not that simple. Why not? Because I have responsibilities, commitments, a company that depends on me making smart, rational choices. And I'm not a smart choice. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He reached out. His hand found hers. The contact sent electricity through her entire body. I meant that choosing you would mean blowing up my entire life, he said. Breaking off an engagement. Disappointing people who've invested in me. Admitting that I've been living wrong for years. But you'd have something real. I know. So what's stopping you? He looked at their joined hands. His thumb traced circles on her palm. Fear, mostly. That I'll make the wrong choice, that I'll hurt you, that I'll fail. You're already hurting me, Lena whispered. Every day you choose her over me, it hurts. His grip tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, just choose. The wind picked up. Lena shivered. Ethan noticed, took off his coat, and draped it over her shoulders without asking. It smelled like him. Cedar and something else, something warm. There's a baby now, he said. That changes everything. Does it? Of course it does. This isn't just about us anymore. So what are you saying? He was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady but strained. I'm saying I need time to figure this out, to do this right. How much time? I don't know. A few days, a week? Just enough to think clearly. Lena pulled her hand away. The loss of contact felt like a physical ache. You have a week until your engagement party. I know. So you'll decide by then? Yes. And in the meantime? In the meantime, nothing changes. We go to work. We keep our distance. We pretend everything's normal. I'm pregnant with your child and you're about to celebrate your engagement to someone else. Nothing about this is normal. I know. He looked wrecked, completely wrecked. I know how this looks, how it feels, but I need to handle this carefully for everyone involved. Including Victoria? Including Victoria. She doesn't deserve to be blindsided. Lena wanted to be angry, wanted to yell at him for being a coward, for choosing comfort over courage, but she was too tired, too overwhelmed, too scared. Okay, she said. A week. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just figure it out. They stood there for another minute, not touching, both staring at the water. The ferry was docking now, its lights bright against the darkening sky. People were disembarking, heading home to their normal lives with their normal problems. I should go, Lena said. Let me drive you. That's not a good idea. It's getting dark, and you're... He gestured vaguely. You shouldn't be taking the bus. I've been taking the bus for years. Lena, please. She was too tired to argue. Fine. They walked to his car in silence. The Tesla was parked near the entrance, sleek and black and expensive. He opened the passenger door for her. She got in. The leather seat was cold. The drive to Greenwood took 15 minutes. Neither of them spoke. Just the hum of the electric engine and the sound of rain starting to fall. Soft at first, then harder. When they pulled up to her building, Ethan put the car in park but didn't turn it off. Lena, he said, yeah? Whatever happens, whatever I decide, I'm not abandoning you. Or the baby. You need to know that. She looked at him, really looked, saw the fear there, the guilt, but also something else, something that looked like hope. I want to believe you, she said. Then believe me. She got out of the car, walked to her building without looking back, heard the car pull away only after she'd gone inside. The apartment was empty again. Jess was working late. Lena went to her room, lay down on the bed, fully clothed. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Get some rest, we'll figure this out. She didn't respond, just stared at the ceiling, watching shadows move across it as cars passed outside. 1 week. He had 1 week to decide what kind of man he was going to be, and she had 1 week to figure out what she'd do if he chose wrong. The rain got louder, the radiator clanked on. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't look. The week passed in a fog. Work, emails, files, tired smiles when asked if she was okay. The engagement party was Friday. Streamers in the break room. Cake from Capitol Hill. People kept asking if she was going. She said maybe. Lie. She wasn't going. Couldn't watch him celebrate a future with someone else while carrying his child. Ethan looked worse each day. Tie loose by 10 a.m., coffee always in hand. Thursday she saw him in the parking garage sitting in his Tesla, staring at nothing. They hadn't spoken since Wednesday. Friday morning arrived grey and cold. Lena looked in the mirror, thinner, shadowed eyes. The nausea had started 3 days ago. Her phone buzzed. Jess, you sure you don't want me to call in sick? I'm sure. I'll be fine. Liar, but okay. Love you. Love you too. The bus was packed. Someone's cologne too strong. A woman talking loud about soccer. Lena breathed through her mouth. At work, the energy was excited. The party started at 4. She had an email about parking. Another. Don't forget to sign the card for Ethan and Victoria. She deleted it. Around 11, Priya stopped by. You look awful. Thanks. I'm serious. Are you sick? Just tired. You're always tired. Priya set coffee on her desk. What's going on? Nothing. Does it have anything to do with avoiding the 12th floor? Lena's stomach dropped. I haven't. You have. Everyone's noticed. I just needed space. From what? From everything. After Priya left, Lena put her head in her hands. This was impossible. By 3 o'clock, people were migrating to the break room. Lena could hear the noise, laughter, music. Too many bodies in too small a space. She should leave. go home before the party started. But something kept her in her seat. At 3:30 she stood up, walked to the break room, stood in the doorway. The room was packed. The cake. Congratulations, Ethan and Victoria. Streamers, jazz music. Ethan stood near the window, laughing at something. Then he turned, saw her. Everything else fell away. His expression shifted. Pain, guilt, longing. Lena. Tom from security appeared with champagne. Didn't think you were coming. Just saying hi. You want some? I'm good. She looked back at Ethan, still watching her. She turned and walked away, grabbed her bag, needed to leave. Now. She was halfway to the elevator when she heard footsteps behind her. Lena, wait. She stopped. Didn't turn around. Ethan came around to face her. They were in a hallway away from the party, but not far enough. Anyone could walk by. What are you doing? She asked quietly. I needed to talk to you. Now? At your engagement party? I've been trying to talk to you all week. You've been avoiding me. You said you needed time. I know, and I've had it. Her heart was hammering. And he looked around, checking for people. The hallway was empty, but it wouldn't stay that way. Not here, and he said, my office, 5 minutes. Ethan, please. She should say no, should walk away, but she nodded. They went separately. Lena took the stairs, arrived at his office first, waited outside the door, hands shaking. When he arrived, he unlocked it quickly, ushered her inside. Closed the door, didn't turn on the lights. The office was dim, just the grey afternoon light coming through the windows, the city spread out below them, indifferent. I talked to Victoria last night, he said without preamble. Lena's stomach dropped. What? Went to her apartment, told her I couldn't marry her, that I'd been unfaithful. What did she say? Threw a wine glass. Missed. His voice was flat. Then sat down and asked how long. I said weeks ago, one night. Asked if I loved you. What did you tell her? The truth. That I did. He turned to face her. She said she'd known something was off, that I'd been distant. She asked if I was leaving her for you or because of you. What did you say? Both. That you made me realize I'd been living wrong. He leaned against his desk. She told me to leave. Said her lawyer would handle everything. Then she said something. He stopped. She said she hoped you were worth burning her life down for. The weight of it hit Lena. Victoria wasn't just a name. She was a person whose life had imploded. This morning I emailed the office. Engagements off. Personal reasons. He gestured toward the break room. Someone decided the party should still happen. Team morale. That explained the weird energy. Lena stared at him. You ended your engagement for me. I ended it because it was wrong. You helped me see that. He moved closer. I've been in love with you since October. I couldn't keep pretending. What about Victoria? Lena's voice cracked. She didn't deserve this. No, she didn't. His jaw tightened. But staying would have been worse. Lena sat. Her legs felt weak. The board. 2 investors pulled out this morning. My COO suggested I take leave. He sat beside her. I told him no, that my personal life was my business. Ethan, I'm tired, Lena. Tired of choosing what looks good over what is good. He looked at her. I don't know if we'll work, but I can't spend my life wondering what if. Why didn't you tell me earlier this week? I needed to do it right. Face Victoria. Handle fallout. Make sure I wasn't deciding out of panic. He took her hand. The baby matters, but that's not why I ended it. Tears streamed down her face. I've been so scared. I know, I'm sorry. I thought you'd choose her. So did I for 5 minutes Tuesday. His thumb traced circles on her palm. Then I realized I'd rather have one honest day with you than a lifetime of comfortable lies. What about the baby? Are you sure you're not doing this out of obligation? I'm terrified of being a father. No idea what I'm doing. He smiled slightly. But I want to figure it out. With you. Because I want to. Tears were streaming down Lena's face. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. They kissed. Desperate, relieved. Months of tension finally breaking. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ethan pressed his forehead to hers. What happens now? Lena whispered. Now we figure it out, together. People are going to talk. Let them. Victoria's family. Lena. He looked at her. I don't care. I care about you, about us, about this. He touched her stomach gently. Everything else we'll deal with. She covered his hand with hers. I'm scared. Me too. But you're staying? I'm staying. Outside, the party continued. Voices, laughter, music. Inside the dim office, two people sat close, building something new from wreckage. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. Lena's phone buzzed. Priya. Where did you go? She turned it off. What do we tell people? The truth. Monday. They're going to think I'm the other woman. You're not. You're the only woman. She smiled despite everything. Cheesy. But true. They sat until the party noise died, until people left, until the office grew quiet. When they left separately. Different doors, same destination. Lena took the bus home. Rain streaked the window. Her phone was still off. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tonight, she could finally breathe. The bus pulled up to her stop. The rain was heavier now. She didn't run. 6 months later, spring came to Seattle the way it always did. Tentative, unsure, like it didn't quite trust itself to stay. But the rain had softened. The grey had lifted just slightly, enough to let some light through. Lena stood at the window of the new apartment in Capitol Hill, watching cherry blossoms scatter across the sidewalk below. The place was smaller than what Ethan could afford, bigger than what she'd had before. A compromise, like most things in their life now. Behind her, she could hear him in the kitchen. The sound of coffee brewing, a pan on the stove, him humming something off-key. 6 months ago, she wouldn't have believed this was possible. That they'd be here, together, building something real. The pregnancy was showing now. Not dramatically, but enough that she'd had to buy new clothes. Jeans with elastic waists, loose sweaters. She was 5 months along. The worst of the nausea had passed. Now it was just fatigue and the strange feeling of her body changing in ways she couldn't control. Breakfast is ready, Ethan called from the kitchen. She turned, walked to the small dining table they'd bought from IKEA 3 weeks ago. Still had the Allen wrench marks where Ethan had stripped one of the screws, trying to put it together. They'd laughed about it at the time, ordered takeout and eaten on the floor instead. He'd made scrambled eggs, toast, cut up strawberries because she'd been craving them lately. The coffee was for him. She couldn't stand the smell anymore. You didn't have to do this, she said, sitting down. I wanted to. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that came from knowing each other, from waking up together every morning for the past 4 months since she'd moved in. It hadn't been easy. The office had erupted when Ethan made his announcement. Half the staff thought it was romantic. The other half thought it was a scandal. Victoria's family had threatened legal action, something about breach of contract, though their lawyers said it wouldn't hold up. The board had called emergency meetings. 2 investors had pulled out. Ethan had weathered it all with a calm that surprised her, took the hits, apologized where he needed to, stood his ground where it mattered. Lena had quit her job, couldn't handle the stares, the whispers, the way people looked at her like she was either a homewrecker or a victim, never just a person. It had been her choice. Ethan had offered to make it work, to set boundaries, but she'd known it was impossible. Now she was freelancing. Administrative work for small businesses. It paid less, but she could do it from home. Could rest when she needed to. Could avoid the office politics and the judgment. What time's your appointment? Ethan asked, pulling her from her thoughts. 2. I'll drive you. You have that meeting with the board. I'll reschedule. Ethan, Lena. He reached across the table, took her hand. I'm not missing the ultrasound. She smiled, squeezed his hand back. Okay. They'd fought about this at first, about him trying to do everything, be everywhere. She'd told him she didn't need rescuing. He'd said he knew that, but he wanted to be there anyway. Wanted to be the kind of father who showed up. They'd found a rhythm eventually. Give and take. Him learning when to step back. Her learning when to let him in. The doorbell rang. Ethan got up to answer it. Came back with a package. It's from your mum, he said, handing it to her. Lena opened it. Inside was a hand-knitted blanket, soft yellow, with a note in her mother's careful handwriting. "For the baby. Love always." Her throat tightened. Her mom had been skeptical at first, worried, asked all the hard questions about Ethan's intentions, about whether Lena was sure this was what she wanted. But she'd come around. Visited last month, spent the weekend getting to know Ethan, asking him pointed questions over dinner, watching how he looked at her daughter. Whatever she'd seen must have satisfied her. She'd hugged Lena before leaving and whispered, "He loves you, really loves you, I can see it." "It's beautiful," Ethan said, touching the blanket. "Yeah." They sat there for a moment, both looking at this small piece of their future. This reminder that in 3.5 months, their entire world would change again. "Are you scared?" Lena asked. "Terrified?" "Me too. But the good kind of terrified, right?" She looked at him, at this man who'd turned his entire life upside down for her, who'd chosen the hard path because it was the honest one, who still looked at her like she was the best thing that had ever happened to him, even when she was exhausted and hormonal and wearing the same sweatpants for the 3rd day in a row. "Yeah," she said. "The good kind." Later that afternoon they sat in the doctor's office. The room was cold. The paper on the examination table crinkled every time Lena shifted. Ethan held her hand, his grip tight. The ultrasound technician moved the wand across Lena's stomach. The screen showed grainy black and white images that didn't look like much of anything to Lena. But then, "There's the heartbeat," the technician said, a rapid flickering on the screen, steady, strong. Lena felt tears spring to her eyes. Looked at Ethan. He was staring at the screen, his expression something between awe and disbelief. "That's—" He couldn't finish. "That's your baby," the technician said, smiling. They left the office with printouts of the ultrasound. Grainy images that would go on the fridge next to takeout menus and grocery lists, evidence of something growing, changing, becoming real. In the car, Ethan didn't start the engine right away, just sat there holding one of the ultrasound pictures. "We're really doing this," he said. "We really are. I'm going to mess up, you know that, right? I'm going to make mistakes. So will I. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out." He leaned over, kissed her gently. When he pulled back, he was smiling. Really smiling. The kind of smile that reached his eyes, erased the lines of stress that had been there for months. They drove home through Capitol Hill, past the coffee shops and vintage stores and street musicians playing for change. The city they'd both lived in for years but were seeing differently now. Not just as individuals navigating their separate lives, but as partners building something together. That evening, they sat on their small balcony. The sun was setting, actually setting visible through a break in the clouds, pink and orange streaks across the sky. Rare for Seattle. Special. Lena rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, his arm wrapped around her, his hand on her stomach. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. "Giving up the life you had planned?" "No." He didn't hesitate. "That life looked good on paper, but it wasn't mine. This is. Even with all the complications?" "Especially with the complications." She smiled, closed her eyes, felt the warmth of the sun on her face, the steady beat of his heart against her cheek, the small flutter in her stomach that might have been the baby or might have been her imagination. This wasn't the story either of them had expected. It was messier, harder, full of judgment and obstacles and moments of doubt. But it was theirs. And that made it beautiful. The sun slipped below the horizon. The city lights began to flicker on one by one. Inside, the apartment was warm, waiting. They stayed on the balcony a little longer, watching the day turn to night, holding each other, building the courage for tomorrow, because that's what love was in the end. Not the easy choice, not the safe one, but the one that asked you to be brave, to risk everything for something real. And they had chosen it, together. The first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Ethan's hand moved gently across her stomach. Somewhere in the building, a door closed. They stayed right where they were. The end. Final message. Love doesn't always arrive in perfect timing or follow the path we've planned. Sometimes it comes when we're not ready, when the circumstances are complicated. When choosing, it means dismantling the life we thought we were supposed to live. But real love, the kind that changes you, asks for courage over convenience. It asks you to be honest when lying would be easier, to choose truth over comfort, to build something authentic even when the world is watching and judging. Lena and Ethan's story reminds us that the most meaningful connections often begin in moments of vulnerability, that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit what we really want, even when it scares us. That family isn't always planned, but it can still be chosen. Their journey wasn't perfect, it was messy and complicated and full of difficult decisions, but it was real. And in a world that often values appearances over authenticity, that realness matters. Because in the end, we're not defined by the plans we make, but by the choices we stand behind, by the people we choose, by the courage we find to love honestly, completely, and without apology. A question for you. Have you ever had to choose between what looked right and what felt right? How did you find the courage to follow your heart, even when the path forward was unclear? Your participation means a lot to the channel. Please share your thoughts in the comments. If this story made you feel something, the fear, the hope, the impossible choices, please hit that like button and subscribe. Love doesn't always arrive on time, but your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. What would you have done in Lena's place? Let us know below.